Welcome back to a brand new C3 Leadership Insights video. Today I'm joined with our Chief Strategy Officer, Claire, and we're going to be discussing some of the top questions that clients and brands are asking in the industry at the moment. What is your best advice to growing your brand in 2025?
In 2025, I'd say that there's 4 things that I'd really start as an absolute foundation. The first one is making sure you've got your data house in order. If you're not tracking success and what success looks like, then how can you possibly identify it and do more of it, or maybe you're optimizing to the wrong thing. So the first off is to make sure that your tracking, your tagging is correct, and that you know what success looks like to you, and that you're working with that to drive more of that. The second thing is creativity. In order to stand out when everybody has the same tools, you've got to make your ads, your messaging, your PR, your anything catch somebody's eye, and that means working with your audiences to work out their motivations, their objections, and really delivering messaging to them that makes them just stop and think, so that you end up on their consideration list. My third bit of advice is invest in branding. If you only invest in bottom of the funnel activity, then it's just a race to the bottom in terms of price. So investing in branding, making people want you over and above your competitors, means that people pay a little bit extra for it, which of course adds to your own margin. The fourth one is just bring everything together. Make sure that your PR works with your influencers, that your influencers are being enhanced by your paid, that your PPC and your SEO activities all pointing in the same direction, and that's when you'll achieve the best results in 2025.
When media rates are rising, how do brands combat this to drive efficiencies?
So how we're driving growth for our clients in some super competitive industries is by leaning into what the platform's latest tactics are. Now, of course, this needs to work for our clients. We don't just do it for the sake of it. But for example, if we use Advantage Plus in Meta, or we look at PMax or Demand Gen in Google, then we find that we are rewarded with the best rates to begin with, which naturally gives you the best chance of driving performance at the back end anyway. And then make sure that you are allowing the algorithms and those more AI-driven campaign types the freedom to go and find those opportunities. With keywords that are, or search terms being now like 5 or more keywords long in most instances, we can't ever as humans think of all those different possibilities. It's impossible. And then 15% of all search queries are new every day as new trends and new products and just new ways of thinking come out. So we need to not rely on our exact and our broad keywords, and we need to go into things like PMax and Demand Gen and allow Facebook's algorithm to be able to go out and find that person that, or that search query that we might not have thought of as converting, but actually is super valuable to us. And then make sure that you're telling the algorithms and the platforms what success looks like. So say, for example, you go broad, you tell Google, for example, that you just want the most amount of clicks possible. That's basically giving Google a license to print money, and it will. So therefore we need to say, no, I want this conversion point at this cost per acquisition, or even like profitability or margin, or something that's even more valuable. And then once you've got those sheep penned in, then you can let them go. Because, like I say, otherwise you're just giving those sheep riot to sort of run off everywhere. But once you've given those signals, then you can let the algorithms do what they do best, which is finding new opportunities at the right cost for you.
You say invest in more brand activity, but how are you recommending brands to measure this?
Branding is notoriously difficult to measure. Digital, easy, you've got your cost per click, you've got your ROAS, you've got your everything against an individual impression. When you start to move more into branding, it's really difficult because you're trying to make somebody feel something, and how do you measure how somebody feels about something? But there are ways and means you can do it. So, of course, ultimately, you want your CRM data to increase. You want to drive more conversions, more revenue, more profit, but then we need to look at the proxies, measures that we can look at in the meantime to get there. So one of those would be things like brand sentiment. If you survey a load of people, has their propensity to be more favourable towards the brand increased over a period of time? That would be a success of branding. Or geo lifts, whereby you do a branding piece in, say, Manchester and you compare that to Leeds, have you then seen more sales in Manchester versus Leeds? And you try and make it as clear cut as possible to identify what's working and what's not working. But ultimately, branding is so important. When search is so saturated and so competitive, we need to make people want our products. And how do we do that is by moving up into that mid and upper funnel. So things like influencers, YouTube, PR, those kind of pieces where we get in front of people and they're like, amazing, I want that product. And then they will buy it, and it's kind of measuring that want to that buy and trying to stick those two things together.
Influencers are a whole ecosystem in their own right, but how should a brand decide on what level of influencer to engage with?
I think some of this comes down to the objective of the campaign. So if the objective of the campaign is to get like a mass awareness and to get people to just know that your brand exists and to start associating it with something, then you can go big if you have the budget. You can go into those more macro, those more celebrity pieces, which have those audiences that are huge. Then you can tap into that kind of activity. Whereas if you want something that's a bit more direct response driven, you want someone to actually not just know your brand, but to start having an opinion about it and start getting on their consideration list, then you need to be working with more of those sort of micro and nanos who have those super niche audiences, but they're super engaged and they will buy anything that those influencers tell them is good. And by doing that, you're then engaging with an audience that is super interested in what they're after rather than more of a mass celebrity audience. However, one thing I would say is to make sure that you vet your influencers accordingly, regardless of what sort of size you use. And you can use that with different platforms or just sort of manually. You know, there's lots of different ways in which you can do it depending on if you have the budget to access that sort of data. But we, for example, would start looking at, you've obviously got the size of the audience, but you've got the authenticity of the audience. How much of it is bot traffic versus authentic humans? How much of it is in the geo area or the country that you want to target versus just the world or the US or what have you? And then you've got their campaign rate and their campaign success. So what's their engagement rate? That might be amazing, but if their branded engagement rate when they work with on campaigns is terrible, then maybe steer against them. So you need to look at the branded engagement and the non-branded engagement rate to make sure that you're picking something that's ultimately going to work for you.
What is the secret to driving performance with influencers?
Yeah, influencers is amazing at getting in front of people, amazing for just making sure that you're getting people to want that product, to see it, to engage with it. But that doesn't mean they're going to go on to buy it, especially when you have such long journey lengths these days. And the minute somebody shows interest in something, maybe it's a new mascara, for example, then every single mascara company in the UK is now going to go, oh, brilliant, you're my target audience, you're in market, I'm going to go after you. So how do we make sure that we turn those video views and those influencer audiences into revenue? And some of that is in connecting with paid media. Simple, which is far more known for its sort of direct responsiveness. But don't just boost it forward. Make sure that you work with a proper paid social team, that they have all their usual sort of developed tactics and strategies that they will then take and push that influencer content forward to make sure that it's going to the right target audience on like the right bidding strategy, that it's turning those people, taking those people, showing them more ads that are more maybe price driven, offer driven, buy next day, only 3 left in stock, all these kind of like social bias pieces to take those video views and ultimately follow those people until they're ready to buy and make sure that they buy with you. And then sprinkle a little bit of PR on top as well. Take all those video views, take all those big numbers and take those out to the press and go, look at this product, it's amazing, everybody wants it in the UK right now. And then you'll see that sort of halo effect of that sort of virality piece as well. And that's the way to really take an influencer and leverage that to make sure that it turns into maximum revenue.
Can influencers work for any industry?
In short, yes, I think they can. It's just about finding the right angle. You've got your nano, your mini, your micro, your macro, your celebrity. And the first thing would be, I think, to work with each of those. The more niche you are, the more you're going to want to work with the ones with the lower audience sizes, because they're going to have audiences that are super engaged with a specific topic. The most obvious verticals are things like fashion and beauty, and of course that works all day long for influencers. But we've recently run a B2B campaign where we've looked at sort of card machines and worked with local businesses, whether that's like a small cake company through to stalls in Christmas markets and sort of everything in between, to tell their story. And then it's just about creating that feeling, that emotion, using the real people, the authenticity, the content, and then backing that with the paid media and proper paid media, thorough strategies to make sure that you're pushing that content forward to the right audience, and that you're taking those audiences and then using the designed assets with those guys to then turn that into revenue. But yeah, ultimately, when you've got influencers out there doing content on changing lanes in motorways or rate my takeaway, for example, it's like there is a niche for everything. It's just about how you leverage it for your business.
So if influencers drive brand, can they replace TV?
It's a question we get asked a lot. And influencers can definitely deliver brand impact and can deliver revenue and sort of people to site and all the sorts of usual metrics that TV can, but do you get the same level of emotion attached to it? And I think some of the answers there lie in your generation or your age and sort of how you've grown up. And I think that the more younger the audience and the sort of Gen Zers are more likely to look at influencers as the celebrities of today, whereas my mum wouldn't give like 2 seconds to a traditional influencer. She's more interested in, I don't know, gosh, I'm making up names now, but Cliff Richard or the celebrities of old, and they both have sort of different sort of weightings against them. I think one thing to consider when you're thinking about influencers and branding and whether it can replace TV or not is that when you're using influencers, they all bring their own style to it, and that's amazing because you get loads of different types of engaging content, which each one of those influencers' audiences will resonate with, and that's the power of it. However, that means it'll come across in different styles. That's just one tactic out of many to then really drive branding in order to get that brand consistency, that look, that feel, the golden arches or the Starbucks mermaid or the things that you just recognize instantly that are associated with that brand. You're not going to get as much with influencers because, like I say, they've all got the different styles. So you need to have the two together, is what I'd say. And neither one replaces the other. They're just different. In the same way that with paid social PMAX demand gen, you would have your vertical videos, you'd have your landscape, you'd have your short form, your long form, your designed assets, your UGC assets. It's about building that picture and allowing the algorithms to deliver the right content to the right person at the right time, and that doesn't work if you only have one stream of content. So in order to, in answer to the question to can influencers replace TV, I'd say no, they're incredibly complementary.
How are we as an agency using AI in our campaigns?
So AI is really just a good start. It's not going to replace anything we do. It just gives us that starter for 10 and makes things faster. So for example, we'll use it for reporting, which just drives efficiencies so that we can spend more time pulling out the actual insights, recommendations, next steps from our campaigns. We use it for campaign ideation. I used it for a LinkedIn post yesterday where I just wasn't sure where to start with it. So I input the video that I want to say something about and asked it to create a LinkedIn post. And it wasn't perfect, but I tweaked it and used that as a basis. And then within 10 minutes, I've got an amazing post out. So we use it like that as well. But then in terms of our actual campaigns, then we use it all the time in paid, for example. Most of the campaign types that we use in media these days are all AI driven in the background. So I think people ask the question, using AI like it's a brand new thing. It's like AI's been in Google campaigns since I think it's 2015. I think it's just advancing and it's just sort of becoming more of a thing. But what we do use it for is for finding incremental opportunities that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of, whether that's keywords that are 10 keywords long, like mother of the bride, blue, wedding guest dress size 14. Do you know what I mean? It could be absolutely anything. And we use AI to find those opportunities. And as such, it means that we can drive a lot of cost efficiency as well, because we're not just relying on the core of what we know, but we're letting the algorithms loose. So it really is across everything, whether it's our workflow, or whether it's like the campaigns and the actual sort of campaign performance as well. It really is just embedded in across the agency and everything.
Strategy and planning projects are a big investment, but do you think they're worthwhile for brands?
I think the answer is yes, absolutely. I think people can look at it look at it as this investment piece up front. But if that ultimately means that your massive media spend is going to work even 10%, even 1% harder, then it's going to pay back. The key is to find the opportunities and to use the strategy to refocus everything on where you're going to get growth. So rather than just stagnating and doing what you do year on year, we might find by doing a strategy project, for example, that rather than looking at e-com, it might be pushing samples instead, or even footfall. Footfall might be the next thing that's going to unlock your growth. Or it could be in audiences. So whether it is a product targeted at kids, and you have, so you're traditionally looking at back to school season, for example, but then if you identify an opportunity with nursery children, then that opportunity could be all year round. So it might change the whole seasonality of your business, which can yield much, much greater growth. So ultimately, the strategy is about finding opportunities and making everything work harder to next level everything. So yes, 100%. I think sometimes it can be a little bit daunting, but the reward should massively outweigh the cost.
So if you'd like to find out more about what we offer here at Connective 3, please visit connective3.com.